Welcome, here's the election according to the latest polls, and let's start off with the safe states. And there we go, so these filled-in states are 99% sure going to be safe states in this election, and now let's start off for Nevada. In the estimate, it has 0.4% win for Harris, but in the latest poll from Emerson, it has this as an even race, and if we average that out, that does come in as a very narrow victory for Harris and Walz in 2024 by less than 0.25%. And now for Arizona. In Arizona, we just got some really new polls from Siena right here. As you can see, yeah, right here, we got some really recent polling from New York Times and Siena, which shows Trump winning here by a whopping 5%. And it's I think it's one of the most highly rated pollsters in 2024. So take that as you will. Estimate has this as 0.5%, so that means the average would mean a lean R victory for Donald Trump in 2024. Now for Alaska's, let me see, I'm not sure we have had a new poll, but we had this from September 12th, and shows this as a barely likely state for Donald Trump. And now for New Mexico, a state that easily has gone for the Democrats for a handful of elections. New Mexico 8.8 in the estimate, while latest poll is the same one for Albuquerque, has this as a 10% victory, so no change there. And now for a more close state, for the big state of Texas, by far the jewel of the Republican Party, the estimate shows this, that it's a 6.2 victory for Donald Trump, but the latest poll from Texas, Hispanic Policy, a new one I haven't seen before, also has this by a victory of around 6%, so likely our victory for Donald Trump here. And for his home state, actually, for Florida, as you can see, the average estimate is 4.4, while the newest poll is from Morning Consult from a week ago, and it has this as a Trump victory by 3%, so this would mean a Trump victory here, averaging that out to a 3.5% margin win for him in Florida. And now for a purple state, for Georgia. In the peach state, the estimate shows a 1.4 victory for Donald Trump, and the latest poll from Siena and the New York Times yet again shows a Trump victory, but this time around by 3%, so that means a uptick for the Republican Party since the last video, and this means a Trump victory by a lean margin of around 2%. And for North Carolina, a state that has had a lot of news recently with Mark Robinson, the GOP nominee for governor, who has a lot of scandals to say the least, estimate 0.5% win for Donald Trump. And another Siena poll shows this as a Trump victory by 2%, so really good polling, week for Donald Trump, it seems, for this week. And this means a Trump victory by a lean margin, just like Georgia, and around, not as much as Florida, but around that margin. And the Sunbelt looks pretty red right now. Now for Virginia, 538 average has this, the estimate, as a 6.8% victory for Harris. Reasonable. And the latest poll for Morning Consult from not too long ago, thankfully got new polls, has this as a 6% victory, so just like the polls, around that 6% margin, so not too much of a change here, but a likely victory for her. And as you can see right here, it's getting quite close, but New York still safe. And I'll talk about that in just a second. And before that, let's go to Maine. In Maine, we finally got a good pollster, I should say an okay pollster, from the 2nd District, which shows this as a Trump victory by a 7% margin, similar to 2020. In the 2nd District, of course, while in the Maine at large, I should say the 1st District has this as safety Harris victory. In Maine at large, it does have this as a Harris victory by a likely margin, so not a safe margin, unlike previous videos and pollings. And now for the neighboring state of New Hampshire, latest estimate has this as a 7.1 victory for Harris, so a very good lead as of now. Haven't gotten a new pollster recently, so still a likely D victory for Harris by around almost a 9% margin, which is very good for her according to polls. And now for New York. And as you can see, New York still, it is an awkward state that could easily drop down to likely D according to the polls, which is really interesting. And we recently got a new poll from Siena, which shows New York below 15% And it's not looking too good for the Democrats in New York. Still, they do seem like they're going to win here, but if there's a polling error, it could easily drop down to single digits. But for now, it technically is a safe state according to my margins. And there we go, just make sure to keep an eye on that state. And now let's go to Iowa. So Iowa, for the Hawkeye state, as most of you know, if you've been part of the channel, Seltzer and the Register put out a poll a few weeks ago showing a Trump victory by only 4%. Personally, I do expect this to move to the right as it did back in the 2020 polling back in September. And I say that, yeah, 2020 September to October polling, or I should say to November polling. So yeah, I expect that to happen yet again 2024, but according to polls, this means a Trump victory here by only a lean margin. And quickly for Minnesota and Nebraska, Minnesota 5.8% average for Harris and Walz. Latest poll from the Telegraph has this as a likely D victory for the Democrats in here. And not surprised about that. And briefly for the 2nd district, unfortunately no polling as you can see here, but that still means that the latest poll, even though it's from weeks and almost a month ago, this does mean it's a likely D victory for Democrats here. And now let's go to Ohio, Vance's home state, and a lot of media news in the last month here. The estimate has this as a 9% victory for Donald Trump, almost 10%, and the latest poll from Morning Consult from around a weekish ago has this as a Trump victory by a 9% margin, so almost a 10% victory for the GOP ticket in 2024. And now let's go to Michigan, and it's very close as you can see. For Michigan, the 538 estimate has this as a 2.5 victory for Harris, and Redfield Telegraph sponsor poll has this only in the latest poll as a Harris victory of 1%. Still, the estimate does mean that it is still a lean victory by less than 2% for Harris in 2024. And now for Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So Pennsylvania, let's go with that one first. And for the Keystone States estimate, 538 has this as a 1.3 victory for Harris as of now. And the Telegraph, another poll from them, has this as an even result. So this means actually that Harris barely carries this state by less than 1% in one of the closest states in this election. But still, we got Wisconsin. And if you've seen the polling recently from Wisconsin, you're gonna get shocked by this, because as you can see, the estimate, it does show Harris winning by 1.9%, but the latest poll from Emerson this time around shows this as a victory for Donald Trump by 2%, meaning that Trump narrowly carries this state and wins the election with 272 electoral votes against Harris's 266 electoral votes in one of the closest elections in our lifetime. Feel free to leave a like, comment, join the channel membership, and see you next time.